explain to us, first of all, what do you mean by digital trade? It's not a phrase that we hear that often.
Yeah, so when we think about digital trade, maybe it's easiest to talk about the componentry, right? So think about all of the infrastructure it takes for computers and networks and software to interact. And then put on top of that just the transactional value of things that are going across borders when you're ordering things digitally, when you're interacting digitally, and then add to that again all of the content that might be traveling digitally. So those three components are a very, very substantial driver of economic growth.
So does it include the hardware? Does it include
Absolutely.
The hardware and the software, as well as the transactions themselves?
And the content. So the infrastructure, the transactional value, and the content. You know, in the case of media, you have a lot of content that's moving.
So you have three principles that you really espouse going forward to really make sure that we continue to grow the digital trade economy, permit the free flows of data, prevent data localization, and protect algorithms and source code. Take us through those.
Sure. So let's start with the first one, permitting free flows of data. I mean, you can imagine a world where we have the digital equivalent of tariffs or things, and how that would slow down the ability of our clients, of all big companies that want to operate globally, and impede their ability to optimize their supply chains and their logistical processes. So permitting data is really, really important. And our view is, and we've been espousing the idea that it should be permitted unless there's a strong reason. And the way, for instance, the USMCA was written, it does have some exclusions, but they were written very, very well, and they're quite narrow. So first, permit free flow of data unless something is explicitly eliminated. Second is this idea of data localization. I mean, it's a little bit of a false protection, if you will. A number of countries are debating, this idea that, well, we'll have to make sure that the data stays here. The bad actors in the world, they don't look at the maps. They don't know where the boundaries are. So the idea that if you keep it in your own country, or you limit where it can go, it's really a false sense of security, because the bad actors are going to go wherever they need to. But it will create a lot of inefficiencies and a lack of productivity if you're forced to store data in certain spots. And then finally, the idea of opening up source code and the idea of forcing companies to expose source code is a really, really bad idea as a condition of doing business. We've always protected our source code. In fact, we think of kind of source code and algorithms as the equivalent of 20th century design, which has always been well protected. So we espouse and we feel very strongly that making source code, requiring source code to be given up or losing control of that as a condition of doing business is a really, really bad idea.
Martin, draw the comparison with trading goods. If you go back to after World War II, we basically had in traded goods all sorts of barriers, tariff and non-tariff barriers. We had GATT, G-A-T-T, and then succeeded with WTO to sort of dismantle those as much as we could to increase the free flow of goods. Where are we with digital trade? I mean, are we back in the days of 1947, or are we not there yet? How much restriction is there?
Yeah, so I think we're actually in a reasonable spot, because it's a discussion that is happening in a number of localities. So again, I'll use the USMCA as an example. That has some really powerful provisions on all three of our principles. So it does permit the free flow of data, as I said. It does not require data localization as a condition, and it doesn't require you to give up your source code. In fact, it actually goes one step further, and it doesn't require you to give up your algorithms as a condition of doing business. So very far-reaching. So from a where are we today, we're actually seeing lots and lots of good instances. TPP had some of these as well. What we're not seeing, though, is, and what we're asking for, is everyone to come together to let's get one global, what we've called an IDEA, an International Digital Economy Agreement.
Well, so without getting political at all, but just on two issues President Trump has espoused. One is he says China is really not good on this subject, that they in fact are restrictive. They do require you to give them source code. You do expect them to give the algorithms thing, number one. And number two, he says that this USMCA is really progressive, state-of-the-art. Is he right?
USMCA, absolutely progressive and state-of-the-art. Now, I think, I'll go back to TPP, as I mentioned. Yep. TPP had many of these. TPP, when it was started, nobody was really talking about algorithms. But the USMCA, now that we're talking about algorithms, has certainly included that. But the issue around protecting your rights and your source code, I mean, we face that, and we've always protected our source code. We've never had to give up our source code to do business anywhere, and we just don't. We wouldn't do business there if we had.
But does that effectively keep IBM from being fully competitive in some places in the world?
It hasn't to date. It hasn't to date. So where we have operations all over the world, we protect our source code, we protect our assets, and we do the same with our clients. We help our clients protect their data. This issue is more of a policy issue. We need to get, so there's a practice which we're engaged in every day to protect our own things, and there's a practice where we help our clients, and our clients have to make sure their data is encrypted and they're doing all the right things to protect their assets. We're on now a policy point. Let's have a policy that supports this as well. Let's have a policy that doesn't require anybody to give up source code or give up access.
I said that the digital economy is growing something like 4 times as fast as
Yes.
the other economy in the United States. And we saw a McKinsey study that said that essentially digital trade around the world is almost like 35–40% of all trade at this point, growing fast. Go out 5 years, 10 years. Will it overtake trade in goods? I mean, is it going to increasingly be that we need to focus on digital trade rather than trade in goods?
Oh, absolutely. So we can do and we can help ourselves. All of us can help ourselves now by getting these kinds of policies, because what we see, in addition to the digital economy growing much faster than the rest, the job growth that drives the digital economy are also the kinds of jobs of the future. So in IBM, we're working on making sure people are trained for those kinds of jobs, making sure that we're creating that next workforce. That's important, but in order to get the full benefit, we have to have these kinds of policies to drive that kind of job growth. And I think everybody is interested. Forget about being political. Every politician, every administration, every government's interested in making sure that their economy is growing well and they're creating jobs for their own citizens.
So as you look around the world right now, from your understanding, who are the countries who are doing this best? And who are I won't say bad actors, but the ones that have the most impediments?
Well, everyone's still debating. So right now in the U.S., for instance, and you used the statistic, from 2006 to 16 or so, the digital economy grew 4 times faster. We saw a terrific labor print this morning, right, in terms of unemployment. And while you wouldn't connect those directly, the U.S. has embraced digital. The U.S. has embraced technology as well as anybody else in the world, has driven a lot of jobs, a lot of job growth, and a lot of value creation. So the U.S. has embraced technology and has an ability now to lead again as we go into the next round of digital trade discussions to try to lead the world into getting a global agreement on how we want to interact.
That sounds like a very exciting new world, and I want to leave this on sort of a down note, but does it have ramifications for equality? In the sense that when we were doing it in goods, I mean, you went and worked on an assembly line, you didn't need a lot of training, you didn't need certainly a college education, and you could have a really good life. Are we saying goodbye to that as we move to digital, because you have people who are very highly trained, very skilled, making a lot of money, and companies that matter, but it's really leaving some of the rest behind?
Yeah, I mean, our view is different. Our view, in fact, says that the jobs of the future, while they will change to reflect the things we can do and the use of technology, the jobs of the future aren't necessarily all going to require a college degree. And in fact, we have programs which are scaling around the world that essentially look like a 6-year high school, if you will, which allow you to come out then and compete for those digital jobs. We hire them ourselves as well. They allow you to compete for those digital jobs and make you relevant in the workforce. So we have those programs today. We think they are the right things to do, and we don't see a college degree required for every job on the planet. Although, again, every job will likely be affected by the advance of technology.